Thank you so much for joining me on the show, Bosun. I'd first like to get your take on how the market has been so far this week.
Thank you for having me. So yesterday there was a normal auction, which was in line with market expectations. CBN offered 430 billion out of the majority. There was a majority yesterday, 463 billion matured into the system yesterday. So the substitution on the long-term bill was on the high side. The total substitution was about 1.12 trillion yesterday. The stop rate on the longer was reduced by 4 basis points from the previous auction. And on the 91-day bill, there was a sale. So what we saw yesterday was CBN ensured that banks segment their bid into proprietary and non-proprietary. So after the results was released, we saw that market was a bit calm. So it was prorated by 35% for participants. So today, what we're expecting today is we've seen a bullish trend. People that didn't win their full bid at yesterday's auction, so they're actually coming to the market to buy. On Wednesday, there was a PMA, so pretty much the same like the yesterday's auction. So DMO just rolled over what matured into the system. So the stop rate on the long end came down slightly. So as a result of the HOMO majority of yesterday, there was a net credit of 43 billion into the system. So the liquidity currently is estimated as 260 billion. Today we're expecting FAC inflow into the system. So we expect OBB and overnight rate to decline significantly to 5-8% levels. On the FX as well, naira has been stable. This week, we've seen a transaction at 361, 362 levels. Yesterday, rates depreciated slightly, but it didn't actually reflect what happened in the market. So we expect rates to close at maybe 362 today, and we expect a result of last week's retail SMIS auction. The previous auction, CBN injected about $311 million into the system. So we expect a similar injection into the system today by the CBN.
All right, then. Thank you. So basically, the HOMO auction yesterday took the shine off the T-bills market there. But what do you think is fueling that demand in the HOMO auctions?
So the HOMO auction, what we think is spoiling the demand. If you look at the trend, we've been seeing a lot of liquidity into the system. Like I said, about 200 billion into the system, and CBN has not been mopping how the majority into the system. So that's what has been spoiling, and we've been seeing inflows from foreign investors. So they've been coming back. They've been comfortable at this level. So that's what we witnessed so far. And we expect that same trend to continue. For the rest of the month, we still have about 777 billion in HOMO maturity. So we expect next week there will be PMA. So we expect significant bid on the long end. So investors are trying to lock in at the long end of the curve.
All right, then, but for the foreign investors who are playing in the INE window, how do the activities in the HOMO auctions affect them?
So pretty much what they do is they bring in fund, so they get converted at the market levels at 362, 361. So depending on the result of the HOMO, they use the funds to actually purchase money market security. It could be treasury bill, it could be bonds. They pretty much investment. And next week, we have a maturity of 223 billion from 2019 bond. So we expect next week's bond auction. So we expect a lot of demand from for foreign investors.
All right, but you're talking about the unmet bids earlier, and I'd like to know how this would impact the secondary market today.
It's like I told you earlier. So what we've seen today is we've seen a lot of demand on the long end. So the market has been bullish, which was supported by the net OMO credit of about 43 billion into the system yesterday, and the FAC inflow that we expect today. So market has been at the long end is trading at 12.9 levels, and we've seen significant demand on the long end, but the short and the mid is been calm.
All right, but it's the end of the week now, but I'd like to get what your outlook is for the Naira going into next week.
For the Naira, given the FAC inflow that we're expecting today, we expect about 329 billion into the system. So I expect the OBB and overnight rate to decline significantly by at least 500 basis points from what we witnessed yesterday. If you notice yesterday, the OBB and overnight closed at 12.5 and 13% respectively today. So I expect Naira rate to close at 8% or 7% levels.
What about the bond markets, though? Any respite from what's going to happen for next week?
So next week, what we expect next week's bond auction, we expect demand, given that we have a 2023 billion that will mature next week, and based on the bond calendar, DMO is only rolling over about 150 billion. So we still have about 73 billion net inflow into the system. So I expect it to be oversubscribed, and I expect interest on the 2023, 2026, which is what we witnessed so far. Like yesterday, the bond market, the yield declined slightly by 4 basis points as a result of the demand that we witnessed from investors. So there is new appetite for bond currently.
All right, but with that slight uptick in inflation we saw in this week, though, looking at how the CBN is going to intervene in the markets, though, any likelihood of more OMO auctions coming in next week?
Yes, so next week we expect another OMO auction. What we've seen is CBN has been trying to reduce the way the OMO auction. So, but we expect them to come in next week. If you look at the stance as being to the increase in the inflation rate, if you notice, was caused by the border closure. So it wasn't because there were a lot of money in the circulation. So CBN has actually tried at curbing inflation. So even with the minimum wage implementation that we expect soon, so we still expect the inflation rate to actually go up. But I expect that next week there will be OMO auction. But I expect CBN to mop up maturity about 300 billion thereabout that we're expecting next week. That's my expectation.
All right, boss. So we'll keep an eye out and see how things play out for next week. I've been speaking to Bosun Obembe. He's a Forex and Derivatives Trader at Access.